All right, with that, let's get started. Oh my goodness, folks, hello. Thank you, early birds, for coming out. Yeah, thank you. Welcome. Welcome to panel. Hello, thank you so much for coming out. I'm Phil Salvador. I'm the library director at the Video Game History Foundation. Hello, how's it going? Really quick before I get started, how many folks here do not know who we are with the Video Game History Foundation is? Okay, cool. You just came because it's history and it sounds cool. Great. Okay, I do want to explain who we are. The Video Game History Foundation is a nonprofit organization that is trying to push forward the field of video game history. We're doing that in a couple ways, which we have listed here. We're based out of the Bay Area, where a lot of the video game industry is, and we're doing things like fighting to fix copyright law to make it easier to preserve video games, which I want to talk about really quickly before we start this panel. You might have seen this headline recently, that we recently lost an attempt to reform copyright law to make it easier to preserve things. It's very frustrating. I'm going to bite my words on this. I'm not going to get into it in this panel. All I really want to say is that I'm not discouraged by it. I know a lot of people saw this headline and thought positive change is impossible. The world is going to end. We're all beholden to, evil copyright interests or whatever. Even though we lost, this started a really good conversation around copyright reform for video games and what we can do with preservation. We've started more conversations with video game companies about what the next steps for this might be. Don't be discouraged, because I am not discouraged by this. I just want to address that because I know last year I promised, hey, we're going to know whether we won or lost by next MAGFest, and we lost. So I just wanted to address that before we went on. There's still more to this to come. We're not giving up. But we do things like that. We fight for legal reforms. We share stories of video game history. We have a podcast called the Video Game History Hour, where we interview game historians and people from the history of video games about their experiences. We run exhibits at events like MAGFest or the Portland Retro Game Expo or the Game Developers Conference about video game history. We're helping close the gap between the video game industry and the video game community, because there is so much great work being done in the gaming community and within the industry and in academia, and they're often not all talking to each other. So being at events like this and helping get everybody in the same room is a huge part of what we do. And we also save rare video game history materials. And this is what we're going to talk about today. For many years now, we have been working on a digital library of video game history. We've been preserving rare materials from behind the scenes of video games, making them, marketing them, everything that kind of tells us what went into the making of video games. We've been preserving thousands of video game magazines. I think we have, at this point, maybe 95% of all American game magazines, period, which is really cool. Yeah, it's great. Our goal is to eventually make this stuff accessible to anyone, anywhere through a digital library platform. I do want to address before we go on what we don't collect, because this comes up a lot. We generally don't collect the stuff you could have bought at Toys R Us or GameStop. Retail games, and that's not like we hate Mario, that's just like other people are dealing with that, right? There are people who are private collectors. You can go right over there and play Mario in that room right now. We are not personally as worried about that, given our resources. I mean, there are occasional cases where, if a really unusual, interesting thing comes along, we'll get a copy of it. But for the most part, we're not trying to get the big YouTuber wall behind us. We are trying to collect things. We like to say we're collecting context for video game history. We want things that help people understand the video games. It's one thing to have it, it's another thing to know how it was made, how people played it at the time, how it was sold in stores, what the industry looked like. We think that's the really fragile material, which is development materials, press coverage, promotional stuff, this design document for Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday, which we have. That's the stuff that gets thrown out immediately when companies close down, when people move on, and we're trying to preserve that kind of work. Now, we have been talking about this library for a long time. I started about 3 years ago at the Video Game History Foundation. If you were at our panel 2 years ago, we showed off some stuff, and I said it's coming later this year, which turned out to be a very optimistic statement on my part. That's happened repeatedly. We've had to keep pushing this back and back. But we've got some news for you.
The real big announcement? Are you ready to do it?
Are you ready, Internet?
We're done. It's ready. It's opening next week. Yeah. It feels so good to get to this point. This is a MAGFest exclusive announcement. This is going out to everybody after the panel's done, but you get to hear it first. We're launching. I am so excited about what we've built. We think this is genuinely going to change how people study video game history. We are so thrilled about this, and I don't want to waste any more of your time. We're just going to get into it. Everything you're going to see for the rest of this panel is stuff that we have preserved in our digital library that's going to be free to everybody when the library launches next week. There's some good stuff in here, folks. So let's go into the library. You've probably seen this picture as I showed it. This is our physical library where we keep our magazines. You can see some boxes of development documents. There's our case where we have like a copy of Madden and a copy of Cookie's Bustle, and like that's kind of the physical games we have. That's really the extent of it. But we also have, in the same site, we have storage facilities where we've been storing a whole bunch of stuff. Some of that I can't talk about what it is yet. We still have to get some agreements signed. But we've been stockpiling all this stuff and slowly working on cataloging it, digitizing it, getting a sense of what we have and trying to make it discoverable. To give you a sense of what we've done so far, right before I came out for MAGFest, I looked at what's in our library system right now. There's about 4,000 unique objects in there. That goes a little further if you look at just like the actual files. Like if there was a CD we got that had files on it, counting all those, it's like 31,000 things, all sorts of art and stuff. And I'm going to show you what all this stuff is right now. We're going to talk about where it came from, what it is, and also how we are turning this into something that y'all will be able to use to understand the history of video games better. I want to start with magazines because everyone loves video game magazines. Just a little B-roll of our shelf in action. Like I mentioned, I said 95. My note here says 98% of all American video game magazines, I should say. And this is really good, just like inch for inch, this is incredible material for trying to understand how people were talking about games. If you want to see like previews of video games or rumors about games, like if you want to know where, Shenlong and Street Fighter came from, you want to go to that issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly. So we've been collecting all this, but it's not going to do people any good if this just sits on our shelves. We're a very small facility. We can't. There's the whole run of Game Informer, RIP, by the way. Yeah, right. So it's kind of hard for people to come. We don't want you to fly out to the Bay Area and get a hotel so you can sit down and read every issue of Game Informer. That's ridiculous. So we're trying to think, how can we make this into something we can do for research? Folks have probably read video game magazines online. You've probably seen scans online on websites like RetroMags. So you might be asking like, oh, those are already scanned, right? Like you can go to RetroMags, you can go to Gaming Alexandria, and they have a lot of these scans. So we're working with those folks. They've given us permission to use their scans for the digital library so we don't have to rescan everything. So we don't have to go back and do like 300 issues of GamePro again. We don't want to reinvent the wheel here. We want to build on what the community's already been doing. But there are some weirder magazines that aren't scanned, like 3DO Club News, the short-lived official 3DO magazine. We scanned this one. This is one of ours. I think there's probably like 10 people in the audience who are 3DO fans, but point being, we wanted to be able to do, we have a lot of rare material, a lot of rare, unusual things. We wanted to do the scanning ourselves, so we invested in some really high-end infrastructure to do this that I want to show you right now. We'll go through the workflow. Let's say we get a big donation of video game magazines that aren't scanned yet. That was terrifying to film, by the way. So we do a couple things. Here's a little montage here. So that's my coworker Frank, the founder of the foundation. That is a laser guide. Frank, for the record, some people were clapping. That is a laser guided paper cutter. We de-spine the magazine, and then we have this terrifying scanner that does 100 pages a minute at archival quality. And it just feeds it right through, and voila, there's the magazine. Just comes right out. We only do this for duplicates. We don't try to destroy things that there's only one copy of. If it's stapled, we can debind the staples and rebind it together. But if it's a spine-bound thing, we don't want to destroy anything one of a kind. So not everything's getting scanned, but we've been filling the holes in what exists on the internet. Like that issue of Official Xbox was not scanned until we did this. But even still, having these scans up does not mean it's a good resource, because then you have 300 issues of EGM. We wanted to make everything text searchable, and it turns out this is not a problem anyone had solved yet. If you know about optical character recognition software that identifies text in PDFs, it's meant for documents like this. This is a contract we have from one of our collections. Dark font, high contrast, light background, it makes a lot of sense. This is what video game magazines looked like in the 90s. Oh, whoops. Yeah, there's the DX graphic, yeah. If you try to feed this to Adobe Acrobat, it just kind of emotionally shuts down. So we had to devise a solution to this. We started looking into a bunch of different things, and we finally ended up devising a really good solution using some machine learning libraries online. We have this thing that we have called optical character recognition for archival purposes, or oh crap, because that's how we felt when we decided we were going to tackle this problem. So I want to show you as an example. Let's go back to this page. This is from a magazine called Die Hard Game Fan. This was a real, graphic design is my passion magazine. Every page looked kind of like this. It was horrible. most OCR libraries don't work at this very well. I want to show you Tesseract. Tesseract OCR is the library used by the Internet Archive and other places, and it really struggles. You probably can't read individual words, but that whole section in the middle with like the white bar, it just doesn't know how to parse that. So we did our thing, and this is what it got. It is night and day. It is such a dramatic difference. Like, there's whole names of games and companies in there that weren't searchable before. So we've been getting scans for retro mags. We've been making our own scans, running them through this, and starting to build up our collection of video game magazines you can research with and search through. We're real proud of how this works so far. Everyone knows, like, like EGM, people know like the basic game magazine. So I want to show you some of the weird stuff we've been digitizing that I don't think people have heard of before. First off, Game Developer Magazine. This is a really interesting one. This was big from, I think, 94 to 2013. It was a magazine for video game developers. So it's a very different type of game magazine. It's not covering new releases. It's covering, like, how do you manage your team? How do you use these new tools? This ad that was in there, this is for a Multi-Gen Creator, which was one of the 3D programs they used for, like, Nintendo 64 games. Like, this was one of the recommended programs. So this was like, hey, buy some modeling software for your new games you're making back in, 1990. That issue says 8, I think, 1998. That's the kind of stuff that's in those. Those were online already, but all the ads had been cut out, so we went back and rescanned a bunch of them to make sure you actually get to see this cool stuff. Other weird magazines, I love this one, Digital Diner. Nobody loved this magazine except me. This was the editor works for Digital Eclipse, the company that does a lot of those retro documentary collections. We share a building with them, so I talked to the former editor of Digital Diner, and he said it was meant to be like Rolling Stone for the cyberspace internet age. So I heard, someone go in the back. Yeah. So, but like it had a lot of interesting coverage. They would do things like they would review hardwares and peripherals, whatever the Nerf Cyber Strike gear is. But they also had like one of the first reviews of Super Mario 64. Like they did have a lot of games coverage and things that were happening in that space. They had interviews with veritable video game industry icons like Tommy Tallarico. This is actually a really interesting interview because he's very upfront about like, yeah, I'm all about image. I kind of fake it till I make it. I want to get my name out. He's very direct and honest about it in a way that's honestly kind of cool. Like this was not preserved until we did this. So we are launching with the full run of Digital Diner, which is to say both issues of Digital Diner. I don't know why Michael Jordan was, I guess they were talking about Space Jam and like CGI effect and stuff, but that was the other one. One other interesting magazine. Are there Neo Geo fans here? Small number. Okay, a couple. So there were not Neo Geo magazines. I think there was actually one in Japan called Neo Geo Freak, which is a great name for a magazine, but we have one of the only ones. This was called New Earth. It was a Neo Geo fan newsletter in the UK that we have the whole run of, and you can see it is just like a copied version of something written on a typewriter with like doodles drawn on it of like the stuff from Metal Slug. So that's fully text searchable. If you want to see what this guy has to say about like Windjammers or whatever, you can go check this out now. We're really excited that we were able to scan all this. This was actually a reproduction. Someone contacted the author, was like, can I reprint these? They said, sure, okay. And so we have a reproduction of a photocopy of someone's typewritten copy of New Earth, but it's online for the first time now, which is great. So we have at the last time I counted, a little less than 2,500 magazines at launch. We're still working on a lot of them. We don't have everything in there, but we're trying to get, like, we have some computer stuff, some PlayStation stuff, trying to get a wide range of things you can do research with. And that's magazines, but I want to get into some even more fun stuff now. Ephemera for video games. This is a weird category, and it's one I really love. It's things around video games. I mentioned we collect context, and that's what a lot of this is. It's things like guidebooks from events, press kits they gave out for video games, marketing materials, that kind of stuff. I love context like that, and this is the stuff that I've been really excited about sharing with people. As an example, we have been collecting guidebooks from gaming events. Back before people had like the guidebook app or whatever, they would hand you a physical directory of like, here's everything happening at the event, here's all the panels, here's every booth. And we've been going through some of those. we have an almost complete duplicate run of the E3 guidebooks. I don't know if anyone's ever tried like researching an E3, and like apart from like a Scott the Waz video, like it's hard to find somebody like really invested. This has a list of every single person at every company that was at every booth, who was there representing them at the show. We have a full map of the layout of E3. This is, I think this is, you can see right there, this PlayStation's booth circa 1995, I think this one was. So like, short of getting a time machine, like if you wanted to know who is showing off what at E3, this is as good as it comes. I think the only one we're missing is 97. I think we don't have a duplicate copy of yet. But otherwise, been super happy to be scanning all these. We've also been collecting a lot of catalogs for video games that shows how they were sold. I think this might immediately kick up nostalgia for people looking at some of these. Yeah, right, I just heard some of that. And, you know, it's very funny, like this one where they're advertising Cardinal Sin, and then there's Mario below Sensational, which is kind of a weird juxtaposition. But there's also games people maybe haven't heard of, a lot of weird stuff that didn't make it out. This one I love. This is from an Electronics Boutique catalog. It's the only catalog I've seen that was advertising the CDI. And even better, not only are they advertising the Zelda CDI games, it has a different plot description than the final game does. The evil enemy forces have captured the gentle giants Kuluan. That is not something that exists in the Faces of Evil. I don't know what that is, but I think that's really cool. We love this because you never know, like, some of these things, as we were scanning them, Frank was saying, like, is this really something we should be digitizing? But you just never know what you're going to find in these things. I don't know if Karen is here in the panel right now. She is not. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you about Karen. She is a friend in our community who is very into the history of video game plushies as merchandise and understanding them. There is these adorable, right? Lolo and Lala plushes. She's been trying to track them down, like, where did these come from? I don't know where they originated. I was scanning some catalogs, and look who I found randomly showed up in the catalog. They were a bonus when you bought. They were trying to just, like, get rid of their excess copies of Lolo. They just gave you a little extra bonus for that. So you never know what you're going to find in these things. Like, every time I look at one of these, I find something like, oh, I've never thought about that before. Like, oh, the price is really weird on that game. So we think this will be fun for people to study with, too. I mentioned press kits, and I want to show you some of those because those are also great because they tell us about how companies were trying to market video games. I think everyone knows, like, video game advertisements in magazines and television, but this is like if you were the purchaser for, like, Toys R Us or KB Toys, and you went to a trade show, they said, hey, buy our product. They would give you these press kits. So, like, we have one for the Power Glove, which, it's a hell of a picture. But it's actually really cool because if you look in it, it's this very detailed thing with, like, a ton of information and marketing materials. And the Power Glove is a joke now, but at the time, they were like, no, like, here's our numbers for our marketing campaign. Here, like, it was a product they were trying to sell and make money on. And that gets lost nowadays in the, like, you know, ironic Power Glove stuff. So it's really neat to be able to see that in context and be like, yeah, this is how they were marketing this stuff. I'm going to hold questions till the end because I've got a lot to go through in this panel. Other things, though, another one that I just found at the back that I was unaware of, to my knowledge, this was given out at Tokyo Game Show 2007. This was just like a primer when they were first really unveiling details about Metal Gear Solid 4. And it has a previously unpublished Hideo Kojima interview, which, so we got that scanned. That's going to be in the library at launch, too. It's, you know, some of this is stuff that's come out. There's a lot of concept art, but it's like, I found an article from GameSpot from 2007 that was like, we got a really thick folder from Konami. Here's what it said. And it basically just recounted everything in here. So it's like, okay, that must be where it came from. We often get things we don't know where they come from. We have to kind of piece together, like, approximately what year it was in. The library system we use has, like, date standards for doing, like, archaeology, where it's like circa approximately this era. And I have to do that for video game stuff sometimes because we just don't know where they come from sometimes. The other really cool one, we had somebody come to us who is a super fan of From Software, who has been collecting a ton of promotional stuff from Software. He digitized all of it and then gave it all to us, which is amazing. So it's like all the posters for all the games, some incredibly sick stuff that even if I was like, as I was putting it in, I was like, I don't know if there's a ton of research value here, but this is sick as hell, so I want to put it in the library. But it's also things like, you know, the reviewer guide for Bloodborne that explains what their embargo is. And it's like, you know, here's the terms, you know, these features won't be live until XYZ, don't disclose after this date. So, like, it helps you get a sense of how they were trying to pitch this game to the press, a lot of that stuff. The last thing we got in, a journalist, like, a month ago sent us the press kit they sent out for Shadow of the Erd Tree. So that is chronologically, the newest thing we have in the library, I think, is from like summer 2024. My favorite part of this story, though, is that this collector was getting all this, and he was going to donate it back to From Software and said, like, hey, I've been collecting all this for you to make sure you have a piece of your history. And he contacted From Software, and they wrote back to him and said, no, you should donate that to the Video Game History Foundation. So I'm taking that as a tacit endorsement that it's okay to share things, so we're doing that. But let's get even weirder. Like, I've been showing you some weirder ephemera. We've got even weirder stuff. Have folks ever seen the old game show Video Power from back in the day? Okay, this was like an old show where it's people playing video games competitively in Johnny Arcades yelling at you. Somebody reached out to us who was a contestant on Video Power, and he still had all the paperwork they sent him for being on the show with the episode. So now in the library, we have the Video Power ephemera collection where it's all the stuff he got sent with like the video of his show and like here's the notes. If anyone remembers the Johnny on the Spot segment, they totally pre-fed those questions to the kids. We have the index card with his question written on it. So, this show was absolute bullshit back in the day. So now we can prove it. Now we know for sure. We're going to keep going. There's even more ephemera stuff. We just got so much here. GamePro Magazine. We got some loose. Folks know GamePro Magazine. Have you ever wondered where the art for GamePro Magazine came from? Okay, one person said yes. Good. Someone else has been thinking about this issue. They would get it sent by publishers. If you were advertising your game, they would say, hey, we've got some things for you. We're going to send them over. Use these in your magazine. And they would send maybe a CD. Maybe they'd send them some files. The art department at GamePro kept meticulous backups of all of those CDs and kept them in binders, which somehow made their way back to the office, let's say. They just kind of ended up in our office. This is the raw ingredients of GamePro Magazine. In every one of these, there's like 100 CDs, and it's like the raw art they would get for video games for doing promotion for them. So a couple good things. There's like 700 of these, and it's taking us a while to get through them because they were all for like obsolete publishing programs from the 90s. So it's like, oh, we have this raw art from Mortal Kombat. It's in Quark Express format. Like, what the hell do I do with this thing? So it's taken a while to get through these. I'm having to learn how to convert QuickTime stuff. But just a couple highlights. We have this inconspicuous disc labeled Final Fantasy VII art. So it's got like all the high-res loading screen art from Final Fantasy VII and like character art and stuff. It's really amazing. And this, I think they just burned this CD, but it was like they sent over, like go to this FTP and log in and download this, but they, burned it onto a CD for safekeeping. We have all the character art from the Mortal Kombat series, which is great. This really doofy-looking Raiden and Johnny Cage over there, but super high-quality stuff. Frequently, they didn't think a lot about what they were putting out, so they would just say, yeah, publishing stuff. Okay, they would just copy a folder onto a CD. Does anyone know the game Excalibur 55, I think was the name of it for PlayStation? One person knows that one. They didn't really care. They just copied their entire publishing assets folder onto the CD, which means they accidentally copied the templates for PlayStation box art. So that's in there at launch, and even better, it's like everything that goes with it, so we can make some like really twisted PS1 games with all the raw things. I don't know what this game would be where it's like mouse required, 8 systems linked together. If you can imagine that game, please let me know, and I'll commission. Someone should make it. Someone should do homebrew with that. But it's just incredible to see what was coming out of video game company, like how they were promoting their things, what kind of art they were giving to people. It's really cool. We have them, I think right now it's done through 95 through, I think, early 1998. So a lot of that good PS1 and 64 stuff. I am rushing through. We're not even like halfway done with the good stuff. Development materials, this is the really good stuff. This is our special collections, and this is where some of the juiciest material is. People are rubbing their hands. It's good. So to explain what we mean by special collections, I use this phrase a lot. These are unique materials from within the video game industry, usually tied to a person or a company. So in some cases, a developer will have a bunch of things in their basement, and they'll say, hey, I held onto this for years. You can have it. You can work with it. Sometimes we break a little bit of that up. If they just have like a pile of Game Pros, we'll put those into the magazine collection. But if it's like a thing from them, we try to keep it together. So it's like this represents their work. This represents the company. So that's why they're special. We try to keep it all together as a unit. So if you're trying to study this company or this person, you have this whole collection. The most exciting one we have is the Mark Flitman papers. This is a guy you should know even if you don't know his name. Like, you've definitely played games he worked on. Mark is now a retired game producer who worked for a lot of companies in the 90s like Konami, Midway, Atari. He worked in the Chicago area, which is very obvious when he turns around. There we go. Yeah, so he worked for a lot of those companies, often doing licensed games, localizations, that kind of thing. He worked on a lot of sports games. He worked on a lot of like Marvel and DC Comics games for Super Nintendo, that kind of thing, wrestling games. If you were at the panel I did 2 years ago, we talked a little bit about this. I showed you some things like this memo from Konami that somebody set the Konami van on fire in August 1990. I'm going to leave. We have the other end of that. We figured out what happened to the van. We'll let you figure that out when the library launches. But I want to show you things that we haven't shown yet. Some of my all-time favorites. Mark Flitman was the producer on MLB Slugfest, if people remember that. He was the leader of what was called the Midway Sports Asylum brand, which was their like hardcore, crazy NFL Blitz sports games. So he has all these production things from those games. And one of them is for MLB Slug. Excuse me. Too much tea earlier. MLB Slugfest, if you don't know it, it's kind of an extreme baseball game. It's a little edgy. So they have the, announcers giving a lot of very colorful commentary. And they wrote a lot of script, and they had to run it past the MLB. Some of it didn't get recorded, but we have the script in a file called MLB disapproved audio.doc. So this one is, after the player loses, they're like, wow, they're going to kill that guy after the game. And MLB was like, you can't say that. You can't just put that in your video game. This is one of my favorite things in the collection. It's funny, but it shows you how they were trying. Like, again, this is what we mean by like having more than the game helps. Like, what ended up in MLB Slugfest was after the MLB said, let's reclose the envelope a little bit. Let's not go all the way with this thing. So it's cool that we have this. I'm sad it wasn't recorded, but at least we have some of this now. That's fun, but we also have things that are insightful for learning how video games were made. I guarantee there's like hardcore PlayStation PS1 fans in the audience. You have probably never seen a product proposal form for a PS1 game. When you were proposing a game to Sony, this is what you did. You explained what it was, what the project is. You specified like what format it was going to be, what features were included in it. You had to specify things about like what your team composition was for it, what territories, are there licensed materials involved. Very, very thorough. Once you submitted this and it got approved, they sent you a letter back that included your product codes for, all right, you've been assigned this is your technical specification, this is for the European version of the game. That's where those codes came from, was them managing internally what game was going to what code. So you get to see that whole process. There are some games where we have like the whole soup to nuts process of like they got there, they applied for it, here it is, here's the design documents, here's their revisions. It's really cool to see a whole game go through, beginning to end like that, which is really interesting. I mentioned he also worked on a lot of licensed games, and I love that because you get to see the challenges of working on a project like that. I think nowadays it's easy to roll our eyes and be like, oh yeah, like, the licensed Batman games or whatever, but that was tough to do because you were having to manage the expectations of your licensing partners. So for the Batman Forever video game, they had to start working on that before the movie came out. The movie was very under wraps. So they had someone go to WB's headquarters, read the script for Batman Forever, and then write a summary like, okay, here's what I remember from the script, and that's what the game is based on. So if you've ever played a licensed game and you're like, oh, this isn't quite right, that's why, is because they weren't allowed to get access to a script. They just had to kind of make it work like that. Other cool things from Mark Flitman, there's so much here, oh my goodness. Mark also, I think when he worked at Midway, just backed up his computer. And we've taken out things like his emails or personal stuff. Like, we're not gonna, we want to be responsible and respectful and, put this stuff in a constructive light, so we're not gonna share that kind of thing. But he did have a lot of stuff from the game industry, including sales numbers. He has a spreadsheet circa, I think it was as of August 2001. It is the lifetime sales numbers, North American sales numbers for N64, PS1, Game Boy Color, and Dreamcast games from 95 to 2001. And this is like the hard numbers from the people tracking it. So it's like it sold exactly this many copies. It made this much amount of money. So GoldenEye 007 by 2001 had sold exactly in the US 4,901,982 copies. And now we know that. It was just in a nondescript folder called Melanie's Book 6. I assume maybe she was someone who worked in sales marketing. I'm not actually sure. I want to ask him. But that's the kind of stuff we have. I actually love it because you can do some really interesting side-by-side comparisons. I love this, for instance. N64 games, the top ones, sold better than the best-selling PS1 games, but PS1 had more million copies selling games overall. So like top 200 N64, nothing on PS1 sold as good as Mario 64 and GoldenEye. but PS1 just sold twice as many in the top 200 games. So I guess what I'm saying is we're going to reignite the console war with statistics, which is cool. But it is really fun to go through and like compare things and contrast and see what sold and what didn't. This is all really cool, but I want to show you something I've been sitting on since we got it. I've been waiting to show this for years. We do not have a copy of this game. It was never finished. I don't know how far it even got in production. I want to talk to you about a canceled N64 game that was produced by Mark Flipman called Monster Dunk. I heard some gasps. Monster Dunk was a movie monster-themed basketball game for N64. It was meant to be an N64 launch title, and this is one of the ones we have the whole process for. The first thing we have is a document from Mindscape talking about their plans for the Ultra 64 console. Here's Monster Dunk. It's NBA Jam with an attitude, a major attitude. And we have the design document. This was just pitched from somebody outside the company. We have the document. This is version 1.1, and they explain why they're doing this. This is dated 96, it looks like. Early 96. So they wanted to get this out in time for launch. And they do explain their rationale about how like basketball was such a big deal and it was like the #1 sport in America in terms of like fast growing, and it hits well with the N64's audience. You saw Mark Flipman's Chicago Bulls jacket. You know he was into this. So it's like, okay, it makes sense why they were going with this. But then we have a document of concept art for the game, and you're not prepared for this. For the motley crew of characters in Monster Dunk, like Count Dunkula. Yeah. Or we got Rap Master Jam. It's the Mummy. Got Slamosaurus Rex. And my personal favorite, the ghost of Abra Jam Lincoln. This is a real video game that was under production. So, now you might be wondering, why did this amazing game not come out? Well, we have another memo called Monster Dunk Project Issues, where they said like, hey, you remember all that cool concept art? We need to like significantly increase the size of the art team. We had to like demote the art director because he wasn't doing his job. Also, do you know anyone who knows how to program a basketball game? And that's kind of where the trail ends on that one, but it's like we have this, like, we're building it up, all these expectations and ideas, and then the memo where they're like, nah, this isn't happening. So that and more in Mark Flipman's collection, even if you're not interested in the individual games, it's a treasure trove for seeing how the industry worked. We have a document, it was a game they canceled. We don't know anything else about it, but it's the letter to the developers saying, we're canceling this project. Here's how much it costs for you to buy the IP back, like the negotiations after a project is canceled. I've never seen that before. That's the kind of stuff Mark has in his collection. Other collections launching with the library, Tom Payne, another name folks don't know, but I guarantee you've seen his work. Tom Payne was a designer and artist at the Sega Technical Institute, and he was one of the level designers for Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Folks may have seen a video we did about a year ago about the lost levels of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. This is the stuff that he had from that. He kept all of his level designs, art concepts, etc., and let us scan them. So, like, these are how levels were designed in Sonic the Hedgehog. This is a printout of, like, here's the grid for how we're going to, the Sonic levels are made in chunks and trying to figure out what goes into what chunk. I forget if this is, he worked on I think this is Metropolis Zone. He also worked on the famous Cyber City Zone that never came out, and we have those designs as well. Those are also going to be in the library. But it's also art they got from Japan, like concept art for the game. So like some of the like original art, I mean, it's not the original, but it's a very high quality photocopy he had of the color art they did for Metropolis Zone. They had reference materials for Sonic 1. Sonic 2 was mostly made in the US, if you don't know that. And so they got things like, hey, here's how we were conceptualizing Sonic 1. So it's like some of that original art. We got these sketches of Sonic and his friends. We got this little pencil scribble of Sonic the Hedgehog here showing how they drew. I assume that was like the original scribbling out the shapes before they went over it. But like they send him copies of that stuff. Or this is my favorite. He has reference material for the opening of Sonic. Yeah, right? So they just like photocopied, here's our drawings, here you go, this is what Sonic looks like, so they could then work on Sonic the Hedgehog 2. and he just saved all the stuff they copied for him. So it's so cool to be able to share this. He also took pictures like with the team and like memorabilia from his time at Sega. Here's the Sega team in New York City smoking and having cappuccinos. Tom Payne is the guy with the long hair, kind of bug-eyed. That's Yuji Naka to the right of him, currently in prison for 500 years. But that's the Sonic team. Another collection we're launching with, this is the last big collection I want to talk about today. This one I am personally excited about. That's the Cyan collection. We got some applause. All right. We got some Myst fans in the audience, right? So folks know, or at least aware of Myst and Riven, right? Okay, two extremely big video games. Myst was the best-selling computer game of the 20th century. It's ridiculous. These were huge games. This was an independent studio. They are still independent. They still have the same headquarters up in Spokane, Washington. Recently, there has been a documentary. There's a Kickstarter for a documentary about the making of the Myst series, and they posted this video online. This is the creator of Myst, Rand Miller. They're in the back, and they just dug out boxes of tapes, and it's like everything from the making of the Myst series. It's like the raw blue screen footage. It's behind-the-scenes stuff, and they're like, oh, yeah, we should look at this. You know, maybe there's some stuff we can use in the documentary. I saw this, and my thought was like, someone should really go in there and archive all that stuff. So we did. This is the original blue screen from Riven, the sequel to Myst. It is unbelievably high quality. It is surreal to see these scenes at like 60 FPS and higher definition. We love this because this is just a great example.
You should know.
Turn it just down a little bit, but it's a great example of the kind of work that we think is really going to make a difference because they wanted to share this with the community and they wanted to use this stuff. They used some of this as visual reference for the VR remake of Riven they just released
Most of what you need to know is
so this was a case where they're opening up to the community. We shouldered the cost of that, of digitizing all of that and making it accessible. They were able to use it. They're able to share it with Myst fans. It's just great all around. Here also is the raw green screen of Cirrus tearing the red pages out of the book if you get the bad ending in Myst.
Oh, yet another page.
And you can see, like, when they first made it, it's just like their home with, like, a green piece of paper on the wall. Like, there's nothing. But it is MAGFest. This is the Music and Gaming Festival. They had a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. This is one of the coolest ones I found. They just pointed a camcorder at Robin Miller composing the soundtrack to Myst. That is an Emu Proteus Max synthesizer he is playing it on. And there we go. Yeah, so he's just banging it out. You can they have another close-up later of like the tracker program he's using to compose it. So it's like, this is lost footage from the making of one of the biggest computer games of all time. This is incredible. And they had held on to it. They knew it was important, and we were able to say, hey, let's work with you on this to open it up to everybody. I am super excited about this. I know there's a panel later, I think is it tonight or tomorrow, about FMV games. I'm really excited about that one. This is the most complete record that ever exists of the making of an FMV game. I'm so excited about this. And if you want to see some of it, we have it set up in the museum right over there. We have a computer playing Myst and then one computer just doing like a 10-hour loop of some of this footage. We have, I think, over 100 hours of footage from the making of Myst and its sequel, and everything from Cyan as a company. But we put a little loop over there. Stop back in once in a while over the weekend. I guarantee you're going to find something you've never seen before. That is where I ended the prepared material. That went a little faster than I expected, but it's good because next up, I want to do a live demo of the library. It's ready to go. I want to show you how it works. I want to do some searches and just show you. I'm so psyched about this thing. We have never done a live demo of this thing before. I'm actually kind of nervous. I was making sure the Wi-Fi worked earlier. Some caveats, there's still a couple bugs in place. Some text searching stuff has a little issues. Theming is not finalized. You're going to see some things where there's a lot of placeholder text. It could crash. I don't know. Our volunteer engineer, Amanda, I put a note on her calendar that said, do not push to prod in all caps during this hour. So hopefully she doesn't update it. But I just want to fire it up and see what we find because I have no idea.
World premiere.
Okay, so give me a second here. I got to figure out how to mirror this over. Let's see. Was it Windows P to do duplicate? Where's my mouse? Where did it go? There it is. Okay, cool. And you can see the URL. I don't care if the URL for this right now is archive.gamehistory.org. You can visit it. You can't get there. You have to log in. I'm the only one who can log in, so don't bother trying. I'm just going to shout it out. Just name a game. I heard someone say Mr. Domino very loudly. I also heard Gex. We'll do both. Thank you for the Eric Andre show. Yeah, screen. That was great. I can't type with one hand. Mr. Domino. So This is what I mean by maybe it'll crash. I'm gonna refresh the page and make sure. I think it logged me out. Okay, 1 second. Security is our middle name here. Like I said, I wasn't quite sure how this is going to go. It logged me out of Wi-Fi. Okay, 1 second. It logged me. We get access to the. Okay, I'm just gonna hide this real quick. We get access to the guest Wi-Fi. I just gotta log myself back in with my. It's what? Okay, there we go. Yeah, you could. I was gonna say I unplugged the cable, so it was like there's no way you should be able to see that. That would be weird and interesting, but. Okay, we're back. We're so back. Okay, give me 1 second here. All right, there we go. Okay, so is that there duplicating? Okay, let's do Mr. Domino. Love me some Mr. Domino. It's not even a particularly great game, but I love Mr. Domino. All right, so we'll give it a second. This is searching everything we have, magazines, whatever material, behind the scenes, sales numbers. Okay, so all it's bringing up right now is magazine stuff. So we can sort why did someone talk about Mr. Domino in 2006? That's really, yeah, I'm going to open that one up and check it out in a second. What we can do, let's do by date. And again, this isn't every video game magazine in the world. It's just what's in our collection. But I want to see who the first person to mention Mr. Domino was in a magazine. Might take a little second here. All right, PSM from January 1998. That sounds right. So when we click into this, it'll take a second to load up. It'll give us all this rich metadata about what this magazine is, who published it, where the scan came from in cases where we're sourcing it. It'll give it a second. It'll go. Come on, buddy. Come on, MAGFest staff Wi-Fi. You got this. Go Wi-Fi. Well, okay, the other one's loaded up. We can look at this now. So it's got, we've categorized EGM as multi-platform gaming. This is one we scanned ourselves. So we can click into it, and it'll give it just a second here. There it goes. Okay, it takes it once it's going. This is a pretty big PDF, but it loads pretty fast once it does get loading. Again, over event Wi-Fi, it might be taking a second. So we'll check back with another magazine. Scan was provided by Retro Mags on this one. We'll start loading that up too. Oh, almost there. Having tested this at home, it does work better in a situation where there's not 20,000 people at the same place trying to do this. All right, so it is loaded. So now we're going to look for Mr. Domino. All right, so why were they talking about? Oh, it was a crossword. Okay. Number 16. What no one can do on PS1's Mr. Domino. Does anyone know what you can't do to Mr. Domino? Yeah, so 18 across is stop. So that was why they were mentioning Mr. Domino. That's what he had become to culture by 2006. And PSM did that. Okay, PSM is loaded as well. So this is probably. Oops, don't add a bookmark. What are you doing? Let's see. All right, so Mr. Domino, that is just a list of, okay, so it was early enough, no one can stop Mr. Domino. Art Dink, action game, okay, I wouldn't say that, but TBA release date. So this is before it was even like, they were promoting it just, hey, this is coming out this year, but this was the soonest Mr. Domino was on their radar. So we have a wide scope of Mr. Domino history now, which is great. I also heard Gex, and I can't not acknowledge that request. We like naming things here like we did with Oh Crap. We have a system, in order to make things visible in our library, we have a system, an account called the General Entity Exposer, or GEX, which we use to make this library work. So we'll find some like magazines talking about GEX, but I want to show you something else I know we have that people have not seen before. So you can see here some false alarms. I'm really glad we have snippet view, so you can see like, okay, this is not going to be talking about that GEX. That's something else GamePro is doing. There we go. Gex is a little green gecko, first mentioned August 1994. But if you notice here, we have magazines, press materials, event guides, some E3 stuff. I want to show you promotional stuff we have, because we have a thing I guarantee nobody has ever read before. It was one of the press kits we got. The Gex Wire, Volume 2. This was the official newsletter of Gex. As like, it was for Crystal Dynamics more broadly, but specifically Gex. We'll let this load up. This one is worth it. I'll let this one load up. I mean, there's nothing exciting in it. It's just really weird that it exists, that there was like a Gex-specific newsletter. I was asking Frank, I was like, do you think Gex Wire is a pun on Esquire? And he was like, I don't think they were thinking that much about it. I think... All right, let's load the Gex Wire. First time anyone has read the Gex Wire. There we go. The Gex Wire, the official newsletter of Crystal Dynamics. It's no doubt that the Sony PlayStation is redefining today's gaming market, and the word that best exemplifies this new market is excellence. AI-generated Gex-ass shit, look at that. It's And there they go, talking about Gex Enter the Gecko. Let's get to some Gex. Who cares about Pandemonium? Whatever. There we go. E3. Gex enters the third dimension and likes it. There's carefully hidden satanic messages and played backwards. Actually, we're lying with that last one. You can't play CD-ROMs backwards, and if you could, it'd sound less like satanic verses and more like a drunken Frenchman. This is how they were marketing Gex, and now you can learn this too when you write your 10,000-page Gex book. This is now information. Yeah, someone please write a Gex book. I'm trying to think what else I want to show you. We can do another search thing, but I also just want to show you some other promo material we have because the press kit stuff is fascinating. I love the promotional material section, just like all the flyers and stuff. Again, we tried to get a wide range of material in here. There's all the FromSoft stuff right there. I'm going to open up press kits and flyers here. If there's anything that stands out to you, we'll just look at it right now. I think there's maybe 30 or 40 of these in here. I'll just scroll through. It's going to be like the Wheel of Fortune where they pan around the room and there's the ceramic Dalmatian. It's just if you see a thing that's cool, shout it out and we'll look at it. So we got flyers here. We have thumbnails are taking a second to load. Got some interesting stuff. Oh, so I heard DuckTales and Burger. We'll do both these. Okay, so first up, DuckTales. Again, I was mentioning this is if you are trying to market this to, stores, right? These weren't ads facing consumers. This was, you go to the Consumer Electronics Show and they're trying to sell you on, hey, buy DuckTales for your store. I think we can see the cool thing about this one before we even go into just in the thumbnail, so we'll wait for it to load up. So you can see here they're advertising it. It's a sales treasure. So a person who runs, EB Games or whatever, let's see what they say. Can Scrooge McDuck, blah, 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 blah. Only skilled players can answer that, but we do know that DuckTales is destined to be a treasure in retail stores. Come see what you can do for you. Please call. Yeah, exactly. They were right, but I actually really love it. Our OCR is so thorough that it accidentally caught the word total in this screenshot, which is kind of amazing. The other one, this is. Oh, I have to. Okay, wait. Why is this one not public? That's weird. Did the internet time out again? We do have a system in place where we can show you things but not make them accessible. So from Mark Flipman's collection, he had timesheets from his employees. It's no, we're not going to show you timesheets. We'll click into this one. This moderately obscene sounding one for Burger Time that says, has Midway cooked up a hot one for you? This was at the, what did I say this was for? The Amusement and Music Operators Association Expo. So it was arcade machines, jukeboxes, that kind of thing. We say, we can click here. What else do we have from this expo? And actually, this is a fun one. We have in here, this was something they sent out to arcade operators. This was just a collection of business solicitations for arcade businesses. So it was hey, do you want to buy replacement flippers for your pinball machines? And so we got a stack of those. Please rush me information on Mr. Do. Specifically, Mr. Do's Castle. If you want some Mr. Do's Castle info, you can order this. So this is from Playmeter magazine. And repair PCBs, contact this company. There's our Mr. Do card. There's some really weird ones in here I want to find real quick. Data East, put me on your mailing list. Look at this cute little Burger Time art. Look, it's so adorable. The one that's really exciting to me is that these were published during an era in copyright law where if you didn't put a copyright notice on what you printed, it didn't get copyright registration. So some of these are in the public domain, and we are going to make T-shirts out of them. Specifically, let me find the. So first off, this one. This was an electromechanical arcade game called the Ninja Gun, and this was just some reseller hey, guns are back, bigger than ever. The Ninja Gun, public domain. I think that would make a sick ass shirt. We're gonna print that up for sure. But this is my favorite. This was for people operating machines where eggs come out of them. There's prizes. It's pre-prize pack eggs in the most Uncle Mr. Skeleton from Control way of marketing. Good eggs are profitable eggs. It's a really weird choice on that one, but that's the kind of amazing stuff we've got there. I'm going to keep going through. Again, if anything stands out to you, let me know. There was a Daikatana one. Let's check that out. This one came to us from the editor of Digital Diner. Dan Amrich is a saint. I'm so glad he's given us all his weird stuff. This one, he was this was sitting at my desk for years. Do you want to see it? This was an invitation to the release party for Daikatana. Are you ready? Daikatana, release party, John Romero and Ion Storm. They don't want to make you his bitch. They want to invite you to join them in celebrating. But here, I don't think the game came out until like months after this, so I think maybe some things happened in development. But like, email Jen at Ion Storm. Here's the map. I hope this helps you find the building that we're gonna have the party in. But just wild to see that. It is really funny to see when like, I'll show you this one in a second. Sorry, what did we say? Oh yeah, downtown Dallas. Yeah, this is one that it's funny. We can see that people were like spending a lot of money. Those invitations for Daikatana were really nice. This one I love. This was a brochure. Do you know about the Gizmondo? The system. Yeah. So this is their brochure. Their marketing phrase was "I can do anything," which is unfortunate considering that the people who were involved with this were involved with like the Swedish mafia, and there was a whole thing. But this is printed on. This was printed on the nicest paper stock I've ever held in my life. It was like the highest quality. It's like, oh, that's where the money went, was they were just like printing up the nicest looking things to fool people into thinking this was a real thing. It's wild that we have this, but you can tell when people are spending money on stuff. It's quite good. Let's look at like one or two more press kits, and then we'll do one more search, and then I'll answer questions. I know I could just go for all day talking about this. I will give you, Alex, you raise your hand, I'll give you priority to find something. We don't have Superman 64. We might. I haven't scanned it yet. We have a lot of things, but I don't know for sure. Okay, I scanned this one on Tuesday before I came here, so I'm really excited about this. I'm a huge Illusion of Gaia stan. We need a Soul Blazer Trilogy remaster now. Oh, please. Yeah, and retranslation. It's oh no, I closed it out. Let's go back here real quick. Load it up real quick. This one, I don't know where it came from. It has a coupon in it, so I think it was sent to the public, but there's no indication what it came with. But it's a really neat looking fold-out. Some of these too, the scanner we have is, it does paper well, but it doesn't do like large complex objects well. So oftentimes you have to like flatbed them and stitch it together, and this is one of those cases. So it's, if you enjoy the challenge of Zelda or Secret of Mana, you're in for a whole new adventure, and then it unfolds into this big thing with all these beautiful images, and get $10 off your $70 game. $70 games are not new. This was back then it was $70 with $10 off. And then in the back side of it is just like little like scenes of the world and stuff. Let's do one more search for something someone wants to see, and then we'll go check out other stuff. We don't have Amico. I heard the first one I was able to discern was someone saying Half-Life. Wait, sorry, what was the other one? Mischief. Oh, good call. So something I know we have some Mischief. I know we don't have it in the collection. We have some Mischief Maker stuff from Japan in a collection we have not digitized yet. But I'm curious what comes up. When did that come out? What year was that? Okay, actually, you might be in luck because I believe we have... Oh, no, that's the Funko Land used pricing guide. Okay, never mind. Which is helpful, but we do have a Nintendo brochure from E399. But let's see magazines. Again, a lot of this is going to be magazines. That's where most games, if they're going to be mentioned somewhere in our collection right now, are magazines. But again, I like finding the earliest mention. We were able to figure out who the first person to say the word Metroidvania was a while ago. It was not a genre. They were half kind of making fun of like the Castlevania games that are more like Metroidvania, and somehow that caught on as the phrase. They were like, Dawn of Sorrows is the best of the so-called Metroidvania games. It's like, it was just that subcategory. It was not meant to be like Hollow Knight and Ori and all that stuff. Oh, here we go. Oh, from this, talking about Qbert, these two Mischief Makers, that's not what we're looking for. We are launching with all of Game Informer, except for a couple issues that we have not scanned yet. We have to get copies of, but we do have all of Game Informer in there at launch, which we're really excited about. Retro Mags was waiting to jump on that one. I'm actually going to let this load, but I'm going to go to questions now while this is loading because I know there were a lot. You had a question? We'll go first. Yes. Do we have citation info? Yes. So it's kind of weird. There's kind of two parts to our site. There's this archive where you get to things, but we also have a catalog which has even more detailed information. And there is a cite button on that generates it in like MLA or Chicago format, I think, which makes me very happy. You in the bow tie tux, you had a question earlier.
Oh, yes. One of the information, you showed images, like plus point.
Yes.
Are you able to cross-reference things so if you give it an image of like plus point, can it understand that?
I wish. To answer your question, we don't have any kind of like reverse image search built into our library. That's just not a thing that either we know how to make or is built into. We're using a library platform called Preservica to manage our content, and that's just not a notion they have built into it. But it is really neat. I'm just going to answer someone further back. Yes, you. Yes. We want to make the script itself open source. It is piggybacking off of scripts on AWS that are not open source, but the tool itself, we do want to. It is just configured for our very specific use case right now, but one of our post-launch items was get that open because I know some of these magazine scanning groups really want to use it as well. I'm going to quickly see where Mischief Maker showed up in here. Where did that show up? Oh, just on a list of upcoming titles from Nintendo, and I can't find where did I highlight it? Oh God, it's somewhere. Oh, up slightly. Oh, there we go. Screenshot. So that's first screenshot from this August '97 issue. First people to bother mentioning Mischief Makers. You go for it. Yes, you. Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, I was curious if you happen to know what actually happened with the IP ownership of Monster Dunk.
What happened to the IP ownership of Monster Dunk? We don't have documentation for that, unfortunately. We do see that company did like. However much they spent on it, they would sell it back to you for that much. I am not sure, though. I don't know what happened with Mindscape. I imagine it stayed with them, but I've never tried to follow up on it. But I do want to know because there's some potential there, for sure. I want to get someone further back. You in the green. Yes, Alex, I know your name. One question. We got it. Yeah. The oldest thing, not in the library right now, but the oldest thing we have in general is an article from Scientific American from the 50s describing like programming a hypothetical computer to play chess, technically video games. The oldest thing in there right now is a catalog for the Magnavox television company, which published the Odyssey, which is like the first home game console, and it's like all TVs, and then, hey, there's this other thing too, you might like it, I don't know, and like that's one of the pages in there. So that's the oldest thing in there right now. You've had your hand up for a bit. Yes, we do. Our engineer Amanda, I am in. You know what? Let's do a live demo of dark mode right now. Ignore the staff side of things. Don't look at that. All right, so let's bring up. Oh, okay, that's good too. Well, it was an admin login page that I don't want you to see. So I'm gonna find dark mode. 1 second here. Change brightness. Change dark mode on apps. All right, let's do the transition. Let's go to. And Amanda, if you're watching this video, people are very happy that there's dark mode. All right, so let's duplicate this. All right, you ready for this? You ready for this? Yeah. Oh, that's a settings screen. There we go. There we go. So yeah, it's got dark mode. Very good question. Thank you. I got time for a couple more. Yes, you, purple hoodie. Yes, you are wearing a purple hoodie. We're all very conscious of ourselves right now as we get. Yeah. Favorite foreign language that's not English? That's a good question. Actually, yeah, I can show you one thing really quickly. This was one that Frank had gotten ages ago. It was a flyer that Nintendo put out in Cultural Ephemera that Nintendo had put out back in the day for the Famicom for games coming out. We don't collect a lot right now in other languages only because it's a little tougher. It's like we're focusing on the US because that's what's easier for us to do right now in terms of just allocating our time and resources. Our OCR software also doesn't do Japanese yet. We're exploring options to change that in the future. But I'll show. There's a Nintendo knitting machine flyer. That's a whole separate story we're not going into right now. But where is it? Family Computer upcoming flyers. It will be interesting. I'll let this load up and I'll show you what it is, but I'll take another question while it's going. Yes, you. We have run into some issues of CDs getting corrupted. Some of it appears to have been bad burns at the time. We had some of the GamePro CDs from EA Sports specifically were corrupted. I don't know if they just used a bad CD or something. But honestly, we have a very good, very slow-reading CD drive that gives it multiple takes. So if it's just like a scratch or something, we haven't been able to get through a lot of that. Not so much CD rot yet, but we have seen some CDRs that are past their prime at this point. I want to show you this flyer. Does anyone know what this game up here is? No, you don't. This was Donkey Kong Music. This did not come out. This was it went with Donkey Kong Jr. It was an educational game about playing music. There's Mario playing piano and Pauline singing. This is all we know about this game was this flyer. This is something that Frank sought out for a long time. We actually have a counterfeit copy too in the collection. He bought one online that he thought was real. It was fake. We only realized it after somebody else donated a real one. But that's so coolest thing in a language that's not English. I think it's that right now. Got time for one more question, then I've got to skedaddle. You on the side, you've been yes. The question was, how do you submit things to the archive? The answer is, I will give you my card after this panel, and you can email me. But also, we do have just a general inbox, info@gamehistory.org, and we are accepting donations. We're doing some post-custodial archiving, where in some cases people will loan us things to digitize and we'll send back because we don't need to like always have it on site. So we're happy to do that. Someone just recently reached out with like press kits for Jak and Daxter, and it's like, yeah, I can borrow those, digitize those, and send it back if you want to keep those. So we always have thorough paperwork and notes about where they came from. We want to be more than just like files sitting in a big pile or something like that. We want it to be like, we're sourcing all of this, we're being responsible about explaining where it comes from. So the long answer to your question is, yeah, come talk to me, is the answer. That is all the time I have. I'll be around a little bit, but I have to run to something immediately after this. Thank you all for coming. 1 week from today, stay tuned. The library's opening.